going over all of the commentary and the files myself. I went over them for like 4 hours the night they were released. Um, just a couple of very quick observations. That is, has been lauded and agreed with by even the ardent skeptics, which is the CIA in the 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s really acted as their own government, as a state within the state, killing dictators, killing presidents of countries, killing leaders, assassinating anyone that would get into the way of the perceived interests of the United States of America on a global stage. And uh, the most alarming part is that hiring the Chicago mob to do many of their dirty work. I want to tell people something that they need to take away from this interview, which is, if you think the CIA sits in a room in the 1960s and calls up one of their James Bond assassins that works for the CIA, gets a paycheck from the CIA, you're crazy. It doesn't happen that way. They use mercenaries for hits. They use ex military. They use other branches of the military. Very important. There's a famous story about that. And as ABC News Channel 7 in Chicago has proven, have the documents have proven that the CIA, and you're going to need to know this from what I'm about to tell you, hired the Chicago mob for many of its dirty works, its wet works, the assassinations. It is known, it is a fact, with documents, that they hired the Chicago mob, namely Johnny Roselli, who was the mob liaison to the CIA, hired him to poison Castro on 4 or 5 attempts, which he was obviously unsuccessful. They hired the mob, the Chicago mob specifically, in World War II. And as the documents I'm sure will show, that many testimonies of ex mafia, but testimony of an alleged grassy knoll shooter himself, of somebody like Michael Francesi, whose dad was the underboss in a New York family, and the jailhouse undercover recordings of Carlos Marcello and James Trafficante, the boss in Florida and the boss in New Orleans, where they admitted to ordering and help orchestrating the hit on JFK. And there is probably, Hannibal, no one else in history, a leader, no one else in history other than Caesar, that had more enemies than John F. Kennedy. And I will be frank, and I hope people can appreciate this, a president who did more to upset more groups, more people than John F. Kennedy did. His father made a deal with the Chicago mob to win him Illinois, which won him the presidency over Nixon, and promised that they would lay off on the mob. And his brother, Robert F. Kennedy, the attorney general, went full force against the mob in prosecuting them. And following Giancana, to the point where Giancana had to go and get a court order to stop the FBI pursuit of him in the following of Giancana. It was maddening. He would failed in the Bay of Pigs, which then did not allow the mafia to go back into a pro-democracy Cuba and open up their casinos again. We're talking millions and millions of dollars. He wanted to splinter the CIA. Hannibal, can you imagine a group of pro wrestlers, and one person wants to break up the entire promotion and tell everybody to go find jobs on the independent circuit? Can you imagine what the anger would have been towards somebody that wanted that? And JFK wanted to do that with the CIA. He was taking away the federal oil, the depletion act with big oil in Texas, which gave him made him an enemy of some very, very powerful individuals. And one of the biggest things I have found out was that Sam Giancana's girlfriend, um, uh, uh, Phyllis McGuire, was also having an affair with John F. Kennedy, and that is in Omerta, in the mob, in the outfit. That is one of the number one rules. You do not take or have an affair with another made guy's wife or girlfriend, that is an immediate one-way ticket for surefire death. So I have listed probably, you know, 10 groups or 10 people that had massive reasons to assassinate John F. Kennedy. People that have admitted this. This is not me, some crazy bald pro wrestler speculating.
And this
Um,
is based off of information you already had or new information that you've read about so far from the declassified files?
well, this was the information that I already had from the jailhouse recordings and from this grassy knoll shooter that I allege that I will talk about. But what the files have shown us so far is that the CIA operated with a complete impunity in regards to the federal government, and that the CIA was in collusion, especially with the Chicago mob. So when I tell you about the confession of the alleged grassy knoll shooter, a low-level Chicago outfit member and a driver of Chuck Nicoletti, it is no longer a crazy theory or a crazy uh, 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 confession from a low-level mafioso person from Chicago. It has legs. It has tremendous legs, and